Ladies and gentlemen, there's a quiet power in Christmas that speaks not with noise, but with the gentle whisper of love, hope, and peace. In a world that often rushes and roars, Christmas invites us to slow down, to reflect, and to open our hearts. It reminds us that the most powerful truths are not shouted, they are lived. Over 2,000 years ago, in a small and humble stable, the answer to mankind's deepest needs came not in splendor, but in simplicity. A child was born, not just any child, but the light of the world, and with him came a message so simple, yet so profound, it still changes lives today. This message is not wrapped in glitter or gold, but in grace. It is the reminder that no matter who you are or where you are loved. You are not alone. There is hope, there is peace, there is joy, and it all begins in the heart that is willing to believe. Christmas is about love in action. It's not merely a date on the calendar, not just a holiday filled with lights, songs, and gifts. It is a living expression of the deepest human and divine truth. Love shown, love shared, love given freely. When you look past the glitter, the tinsel, and the commercial noise, you'll see something far more powerful. A message that calls each one of us to live not just for ourselves, but for one another. That is what Christmas truly is. Love that moves, that reaches out, that touches hearts, that heals wounds and lifts up the weary. The first Christmas was not grand in the eyes of the world. It was quiet, it was humble, and yet it changed everything. A baby in a manger didn't have riches or power, but he brought with him the purest form of love, selfless, sacrificial, and enduring. That child grew to embody what it meant to love others unconditionally. And now, each year, as we celebrate his birth, we are reminded that this same love must move through us. It's not enough to feel love. We must do something with it. Love must become action. It must be the way we speak, the way we forgive, the way we serve, and the way we show up for those who need us most. Love in action means taking time for the lonely. It means being kind when the world tells you to be cold. It means forgiving when it's hard, giving when it's inconvenient, and listening when someone needs a voice in the dark. Christmas love doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It acts now. It serves without being asked. It shows up with open arms and an open heart. You see, the real miracle of Christmas isn't found under the tree. It's found in the hearts of people who choose to love, who choose to give, who choose to care. The world is aching for this kind of love, and every one of us has the power to deliver it. When you give a smile to someone having a bad day, when you send a message of encouragement, when you offer a helping hand without asking for anything in return, you are living the message of Christmas. You are proving that love isn't passive, it's a force that transforms, and what's more powerful is that the more you give it, the more it grows. Love multiplies. It builds bridges where there were once walls. It opens doors that were long shut. It changes lives, not just others, but your own as well. We often look at the problems of the world and feel overwhelmed, but the answer has never been complicated. It's always been simple. Love in action. That's what Christmas teaches us every year. Not love in theory, not love in words alone, but love that does something, love that moves, love that reaches. It may begin with a small gesture, a kind word, a thoughtful deed, but it sends ripples far beyond what we can see. And so, this Christmas, let us make a commitment, not just to celebrate the season, but to live its message. Let us carry its light beyond December into every day, every moment, every interaction. Because when you live with love in your heart and action in your hands, you don't just keep the spirit of Christmas alive. You become it. You become the miracle someone else is waiting for. You become the message that changes a life. And that is the true power of Christmas. Hope was born on a silent night, in a quiet stable, under a canopy of stars that had watched over centuries of longing. The world was weary, burdened with fear, oppression, and the noise of unanswered prayers. People cried out for deliverance, for a sign that things could change, that something better was possible. And then, in the most unexpected place and in the most humble way, hope entered the world, not with thunder, not with applause, but with the gentle cry of a newborn child. That moment, that birth, changed everything. It was not just the arrival of a baby. It was the beginning of a promise kept, a light that pierced through centuries of darkness, the dawn of hope that still shines today. We all walk through seasons where life feels heavy, where the days are dim and the nights are long. We carry burdens in our minds, in our hearts, and sometimes silently in our souls. It is in those moments that the message of Christmas becomes not just inspiring, but essential. Because Christmas says that even in the darkest places, light can break through. No situation is too hopeless. No heart is too broken. No life is too far gone. The birth of Christ tells us that God has not forgotten us. He sees the struggle. He hears the cries, and he responds with hope wrapped in humility. This is not the kind of hope that simply wishes things were better. This is the kind of hope that knows they can be. It is rooted in the reality that God came near, stepped into human pain, and offered his presence as the answer. That changes the way we see our lives, because if he showed up once in a manger, he can show up again in our homes, in our hearts, in our hardships. The same light that shone over Bethlehem shines today into every fear, every doubt, every disappointment. That's the kind of hope that steadies a person. It doesn't ignore the pain, it speaks into it and says, "You are not alone." And what a powerful thing that is, to know we are not alone. That in the battles we face, there is a presence walking with us, encouraging us to take the next step, to believe again, to hope again. Just as the shepherds were told, "Do not be afraid," that message still echoes through the ages. Don't be afraid of tomorrow. Don't be afraid of what you've lost. Don't be afraid of starting over, because hope has already been born, and it lives wherever faith is welcomed. The hope of Christmas doesn't fade with the decorations or vanish after the season. It's not a feeling that comes and goes. It is a truth that stays. It whispers to the broken, "You can be healed." It calls to the wandering, "You can come home." It speaks to the defeated, "You can rise again." This is not just poetic sentiment. It is reality. Because the same God who brought hope to the world in a manger still brings hope to every heart today. So if you find yourself tired, if the weight of the world feels like too much, remember this. The message of Christmas is not just a story. It is a promise. A promise that no matter how long the night, morning always comes. No matter how deep the valley, there is a path forward. No matter how lost you feel, you are never beyond the reach of grace. The birth of Christ means the birth of a new beginning. Hope has come, and it is here to stay. There is a quiet strength in simplicity, a hidden power that often goes unnoticed by the world obsessed with noise, fame, and glittering displays. Yet, when we look closely at the heart of Christmas, we discover that the most powerful event in history came in the simplest, humblest form, a baby born not in a palace but in a stable, wrapped in swaddling clothes and laid in a manger, surrounded by animals, watched over by a teenage mother and a quiet, faithful father. This child would change the course of eternity. There were no golden thrones or royal fanfare. There were no celebrity announcements or grand processions. There was only stillness, simplicity, and sacred purpose. The world did not expect its Savior to come like that. People were looking for someone with status, someone with political clout or military might. But God chose something far more profound. He chose to reveal his greatest power through stillness, through meekness, through the ordinary, because that's where true greatness lies, not in appearances, but in essence. That child in the manger was not just a baby. He was the embodiment of light, of truth, of divine love, and he arrived in such a way that no one could ever say they were too low, too small, too broken, or too forgotten to be touched by God's presence. This message speaks to us now more than ever. In a time when people chase after more things, more recognition, more noise, we are gently reminded by Christmas that the most meaningful things often come in the simplest way. A kind word, a listening ear, a warm meal shared with someone in need, a handwritten note that says, "You matter." These things may not be flashy, but they carry eternal weight. They are the manger moments in our everyday lives. Small, simple acts that carry divine purpose. You don't need a stage to make an impact. You don't need a title to be powerful. The greatest influence you can ever have is through the quiet consistency of love, faith, and humility. That's what the Christmas story shows us, that in God's eyes, simplicity is not weakness. It is strength under control. It is greatness wrapped in humility, and that same greatness can live in you right where you are with what you already have. Sometimes we think we need to fix everything about our lives before we can be used for something greater. But God has always worked through the simple, a manger, a stable, a young couple willing to believe, ordinary people trusting an extraordinary promise. If God could choose the lowest of places to enter the world, surely he can use the quiet spaces of your life to shine his light. You don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to be famous to be valuable. You just need to be willing and open and faithful. The power is not in the setting, it's in the purpose, and when that purpose is rooted in love, it becomes unstoppable. The world often overlooks the simple, but heaven never does. Heaven sees the value in the small beginnings, the humble prayers, the silent sacrifices. Christmas teaches us to honor the unseen, to embrace the quiet strength of simplicity. Because that's where the real miracles happen, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows, not in the applause, but in the quiet yes of a heart that believes. So wherever you are today, whatever your circumstances may be, know this: you don't need to have everything to be part of something eternal. You don't need to be celebrated to be significant. The Savior of the world came in the most humble way possible to show you that you matter, just as you are, and that is the incredible, life-changing power of simplicity. Peace is not just a dream or a distant hope whispered in quiet moments. It is a possibility, a real, living, breathing gift offered to every human heart through the message of Christmas. When the angels appeared on that holy night and declared, "Peace on earth, goodwill toward men," They weren't offering a poetic phrase. They were delivering a divine promise. That night, peace came to earth not as an idea, but as a person. Born in a manger, surrounded by the stillness of a Bethlehem evening, Jesus brought with him a kind of peace that the world cannot manufacture and no chaos can destroy. We live in a world where conflict is constant. There are wars in countries, tension in communities, arguments in homes, and unrest in hearts. Everyone is looking for peace, but few truly understand where it begins. The message of Christmas tells us clearly, peace begins within. Before it can fill the world, it must first fill our souls. You cannot give what you do not have. A peaceful world will only come from peaceful people, and peaceful people are made by the Prince of Peace. That's why Christmas matters so much, not just as a holiday, but as a call to transformation. It invites us to slow down, to lay down our weapons, whether they be made of metal or of pride, anger, bitterness, or fear, and receive the kind of peace that heals the heart. This peace is not dependent on circumstances. It is not fragile, nor is it fleeting. It's not the kind of peace that comes only when everything is going right. It's the kind that holds you steady when nothing makes sense. It's the kind that anchors you when the storm is raging. It's the calm in the middle of chaos. That kind of peace doesn't come from the world. It doesn't come from money, from success, from applause, or even from the absence of problems. It comes from a connection to something greater than ourselves, something eternal and unshakable. It comes from Christ, who came not just to calm the storm, but to calm us in the storm. Peace is possible in your heart, even if your life feels like it's spinning out of control. It is possible in your family, even if there's been pain and division. It is possible in your community, your workplace, your church, even your nation. Because the same peace that was born in Bethlehem is still alive and available today. The question is, will we make room for it? Will we clear out the clutter of fear, the weight of grudges, the noise of comparison, and open our hearts wide enough to let that peace in? We must understand that peace is not passive. It's not weak. It takes strength to choose peace in a world that profits from anger. It takes courage to speak softly when everyone is shouting. It takes wisdom to listen instead of argue. And it takes faith to believe that peace is not only possible, it is promised. And that promise came wrapped in cloth, cradled in straw, and crowned with the whisper of heaven's love. This Christmas, we are not only reminded of the beauty of peace, we are invited to become instruments of it. Let it begin with a word of kindness. Let it begin with forgiveness you've been holding back. Let it begin with choosing to see the best in others, even when it's hard. Let it begin with you, because when peace rules in one heart, it can spread to another, and then another. Before long, a home is changed, a neighborhood is uplifted, a community is healed, and all of it begins with the same message the angels declared long ago: peace on earth and goodwill toward men. It is possible. It is real, and it is here. Faith over fear is not just a comforting phrase. It is a powerful way to live. It is the choice to believe even when everything around you suggests that doubt makes more sense. When we look at the Christmas story, we don't just see joy and celebration. We see a journey of courage in the face of deep uncertainty. Mary and Joseph were not royalty. They were not wealthy. They were not people of influence. They were ordinary people called to do something extraordinary, and all they had to go on was faith. Mary was a young girl, told she would carry the Son of God. Joseph was told to stand beside her and believe in a divine plan that defied logic. There were no guarantees, no maps, no explanations, just a voice from heaven and a decision they had to make, to trust or to fear. Fear is a natural response to the unknown. It whispers questions that have no immediate answers. What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? What if this is too hard? We all hear those voices at times, but faith answers with something stronger. Faith says, even if I don't understand, I will move forward. Even if I'm afraid, I will still believe. Mary said, "Let it be unto me according to your word." Joseph obeyed the angel's command, even when it would have been easier to walk away. That kind of faith doesn't come from perfect confidence. It comes from a deep trust in a perfect God. Faith doesn't eliminate fear, but it overcomes it. It doesn't make the path easy, but it makes the journey possible. And in the Christmas story, we are reminded that the most powerful miracles often begin when someone chooses faith over fear. We may never be asked to carry the Messiah or raise him as our child, but we will all face moments that require us to believe in something greater than what we can see. Life will ask us to trust, to obey, and to move forward even when the future is unclear. That is where faith becomes real. Faith over fear means trusting that divine timing is never wrong. It's realizing that delays are not denials and detours are not the end of the road. It means believing that even when your plans fall apart, something better is being prepared. Mary and Joseph had to travel to Bethlehem during her final days of pregnancy. There was no room in the inn, no comfort, no support system, and yet in that uncomfortable place, the greatest gift the world has ever received was born. That's how God works. He takes the messy, the difficult, and the unexpected, and he brings beauty out of it. We often want full clarity before we take the first step, but faith says, take the step anyway. Step into the unknown. Speak up when you feel small. Show up even when you feel unqualified, because when you do, you are living out the same courage that carried Mary and Joseph through the first Christmas. You are trusting in a plan bigger than you, and you are allowing that trust to lead you through fear. Fear will always knock at your door. It will tell you you're not ready, that it's too late, that you're not good enough. But faith reminds you that God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. He walks with you through the fire. He makes a way where there is no way. And the story of Christmas is proof that when we trust him, even the most impossible situations can lead to divine purpose. So choose faith, not because it's easy, but because it's worth it, because it changes everything, because when you live by faith, you don't just survive, you grow, you shine, you become part of something eternal. And just like Mary and Joseph, your obedience, your courage, your trust can help bring light into the world. Giving is not just a kind act. It is a spiritual force that changes the one who gives just as much as it blesses the one who receives. Christmas reminds us of this truth more powerfully than any other season. We hear the story of the wise men who traveled from afar, guided by a star, carrying gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They brought their treasures to lay before a newborn king. But the most profound part of that moment wasn't the gifts they gave. It was the recognition that the true gift had already been given to them. In that stable, in the form of a tiny child, heaven had offered its greatest treasure to the world. This is the very heartbeat of Christmas. giving that comes not from obligation, but from love. When we give with open hands and willing hearts, something changes within us. We step into a divine rhythm, a flow of grace that mirrors the very nature of God. Because God is a giver, he gave life, he gave love, he gave his Son. And when we choose to give, when we step beyond our comfort zones to bless someone else, we reflect the image of the one who gave everything. Giving transforms us by lifting us out of ourselves. It shifts our focus from our own needs, worries, and desires, and directs our energy toward others. It teaches us empathy. It opens our eyes to the beauty of connection. A simple act of giving, a kind word, a small gift, a moment of attention, can be the very thing that restores hope to a weary soul. And in giving that hope, we often find our own hearts healed in ways we never expected. This transformation doesn't require wealth or status. It begins with a willing heart. You don't have to give grand or expensive things to make a difference. Sometimes the most powerful gifts are the simplest ones: time, kindness, forgiveness, encouragement. A listening ear, a gentle smile, a note of appreciation, a helping hand. These may seem small, but in the right moment they can mean everything. They can be the very light someone needs to see their way out of darkness. When we give, we grow. Our capacity for compassion deepens. Our hearts expand. We begin to understand the quiet joy of generosity, not because we expect anything in return, but because we realize that the act of giving itself is a reward. It frees us from greed. It breaks the chains of selfishness. It softens our edges and reminds us that we are all connected, all part of something greater. And giving doesn't just change us as individuals. It transforms families. It builds stronger communities. It knits together people of different backgrounds, beliefs, and stories. It builds bridges where there were once walls. Giving is the seed of peace, the root of joy, and the spark of healing. It is how we create a world that reflects the heart of Christmas, not just one day a year, but every day. When the wise men gave their gifts, they honored a king. But more than that, they demonstrated what it means to live with open hearts. And their legacy continues every time someone chooses to give freely, generously, and joyfully. Because in that moment, we become more than just givers. We become vessels of love, messengers of hope, carriers of light. So this Christmas, let us not only remember the gift given to us, but respond to it with our own giving. Let us give with gratitude. Let us give with joy. Let us give knowing that every act of love echoes into eternity. And in doing so, we don't just celebrate Christmas. We live it. Every heart a manger. What a powerful and tender image. The manger in Bethlehem was simple, lowly, and unexpected. It was not a throne or a cradle fit for royalty. It was a feeding trough, resting in the middle of a quiet, forgotten stable. Yet that is where heaven met earth. That is where the Savior of the world drew his first breath. And in that moment, the ordinary became extraordinary. The humble became holy, and the message of Christmas became clear. The King of Kings does not seek palaces. He seeks hearts, not grand, polished, perfect hearts, but open ones, willing ones, hearts that, like the manger, make room. That is the message we must carry deeply within us during this season. Christmas is not only about celebration, it is about transformation. It's about making space where there was none before. It's about allowing the presence of Christ to enter the quiet places of our lives, the places we often hide, the corners we neglect, the rooms filled with past pain or present worry. He does not ask for a perfect place. He asks for an open one, and when we say yes, when we prepare room in our hearts, something changes. Just as the stable was transformed by his presence, so are we. We often fill our hearts and minds with so many things: stress, ambition, fear, distractions, comparison, noise. We run from task to task, filling our schedules, but sometimes neglecting our souls. Christmas gently calls us back. It asks us to pause and to listen, to create space not just in our homes with decorations, but in our hearts with stillness and surrender. Because unless we prepare him room, we miss the wonder, we miss the miracle, we miss the peace, the joy, the light that his presence brings. To make every heart a manger means to become intentional. It means letting go of bitterness to make room for forgiveness. Letting go of fear to make room for faith. Letting go of pride to make room for humility. It means allowing the birth of Christ to happen in us again and again, not as a memory, but as a living reality. The story didn't end in Bethlehem. It began there, and it continues every time a heart opens up and says, "Come in." This transformation doesn't happen in a rush. It doesn't happen just because we sing carols or exchange gifts. It happens when we allow Christ to move in and take residence, when we invite him not just to visit during the holidays, but to stay, to lead, to change us from the inside out. A heart that becomes a manger becomes a vessel of peace, a carrier of hope, a reflection of God's love to a world that is desperately searching for it. The beauty of this invitation is that it is for everyone, young or old, broken or whole, burdened or free, it doesn't matter. The manger teaches us that God comes to the lowly places, to the forgotten places, to the simple and sincere. No one is disqualified from receiving his love. All he needs is room. So this Christmas, don't just decorate your home. Prepare your heart, make room for something greater, clear away what clutters your spirit, create space for silence, for prayer, for reflection. Say yes to the transformation that Christmas offers, because when Christ is born in your heart, you are never the same. You become more than someone who celebrates Christmas. You become someone who carries it. Every word you speak, every act of kindness, every gesture of love becomes a living echo of that first holy night. And the miracle of the manger is reborn in you. Joy is a choice. It isn't something that simply happens to us when circumstances are right or when everything falls into place. True joy, lasting joy, the kind that steadies the soul, does not depend on how full your home is, how perfect your plans are, or how smooth the path ahead may seem. The joy of Christmas comes from something far deeper. It comes from knowing with absolute certainty that we are loved beyond measure, not because we've earned it, not because we've lived flawlessly, but because God chose to love us first. He sent his Son not to reward the worthy, but to reach the weary. And when you truly embrace that truth, joy becomes more than a fleeting feeling. It becomes a daily decision. Christmas is often portrayed as a season of joy, and rightly so. There are lights, music, laughter, and gathering. But for many people, Christmas can also stir up sadness, loneliness, or painful memories. It can highlight what's missing more than what's present. And that's why the message of joy at Christmas is so powerful. Because it is not bound to emotion, it is rooted in truth. Joy is not the denial of hardship. It is the declaration that even in the middle of the storm, love still reigns, hope is still alive, and we are not alone. Choosing joy means waking up and anchoring your heart not in what's going wrong, but in what is eternally right. It means realizing that the greatest gift has already been given. Christ came for you. He came to bring light into your darkness, peace into your restlessness, and joy into your sorrow. The joy of Christmas is the joy of knowing that your life matters, that your story has value, and that you are seen, known, and deeply loved by the Creator of all things. That kind of joy cannot be taken away, because it does not rely on what's around you. It flows from what's within you. Joy is not passive. It is a brave, bold stance in a broken world. It says, even if everything isn't perfect, I will rejoice. Even if the answers don't come, I will trust. Even when I feel the weight of life, I will remember the wonder of love. Joy sees beyond the temporary. It holds on to eternal truths, and the most eternal of all is this: God is with us, Emmanuel, not far away, not distant, but here, present, near, and that presence makes joy possible even in the most unlikely places. The shepherds in the Christmas story were not people of status or power. They were common workers doing a hard job in the cold night, and yet they were the first to hear the announcement of joy. I bring you good news of great joy, which shall be to all people. The angels didn't choose kings or scholars. They chose ordinary hearts that were open, and those shepherds chose to believe, to rejoice, to go and see for themselves. That's what joy looks like. It listens. It believes. It moves. It responds. This Christmas, you can choose joy no matter what your situation looks like. You can choose it in the quiet moments, in the busy days, in the challenges you face. You can choose it because you are choosing to focus on the gift that never fades. The love of God, born in a manger, reaching across time to touch your heart today. That joy isn't seasonal. It's eternal. It's yours. And when you live in that joy, you carry the true spirit of Christmas everywhere you go. You become a light in the dark, a smile in the silence, a living reminder that joy is not found in things, but in knowing you are forever loved. And so, walk forward with faith in your heart, joy in your spirit, and the unshakable truth that with God beside you, there is no dream too big, no night too dark, and no life too ordinary to shine with His everlasting light.